Hi everyone, this is Nitin. I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for attending this special webinar training on referral generation starts at the front desk. Now, before we get started, I just want to make sure that everyone indeed can hear me because I usually like doing a sound check before we begin. So if you can hear me, please go ahead and say, audio confirmed, and I would greatly appreciate it. Because like I said, what I want to do is I simply want to make sure that everybody is indeed able to hear me, and then we can be up and away. So again, if you can hear me, please confirm that you can indeed hear me. And all I'm doing is I'm looking to do a sound check right now. And once the sound check is indeed confirmed, we will go ahead and get started. So again, if you can hear me, please go ahead and confirm by saying audio confirmed. And hopefully you see a slide on your screen that says referral generation starts at the front desk. If you can confirm all this, we'll go ahead and get started. I like doing an audio check, even if it means we start a few minutes late, just to be on the safe side. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started in a minute. If you can just kindly confirm that, I would appreciate it. Let's just take a couple of minutes to have that confirmed, and we will go from there. So give me a moment. Let's confirm that you are here, and we'll go from there. If you can just go ahead and please say audio confirmed, I would greatly appreciate it. Once I get the go ahead that the audio is indeed confirmed, we'll go ahead and get started. So at this moment, I'm simply waiting for confirmation in the chat window where you say audio confirmed, or where we have an attendee saying audio confirmed, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Now, with regards to the handouts of this training, the handouts will actually be emailed to you. I'm actually making some additional. Give me a moment. There you go. Thank you, Mary. I'm actually making some additional changes to the audio. To the handouts, and once the additional changes are made, we will go ahead and and hand them and send them over by email to everybody. So again, thank you so much everybody for attending. I'm going to go ahead and get started now. This particular training, referral generation starts at the front desk, consists of both concepts as well as specific strategies. Now, as you may have already seen from some of the previous trainings that we've done, I'm a big fan of conveying information through the audio component, through the interactive component of this webinar series. I don't tend to put a lot of information on the actual PowerPoints, simply because the PowerPoint is intended as a visual aid and nothing more. But if you do want me to put more information on the PowerPoint, then by all means, send us an email or type it out into the chat window, and I'll do that for future webinars. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and go ahead with this training on referral generation starts at the front desk. So let's go ahead with referral generation starts at the front desk. Now, as a clinician, your primary objective is to get as many referrals as possible for your practice. Now, you've heard of the saying that the first impression is the last impression. Now, nowhere has this been more true than in private practice, because what happens for us as private practice owners is that we tend to focus a lot on, hey, how do I get more referrals from doctors, or how do I get more referrals from patients? How do I get more patient referrals? But the fact is, the decision about whether to refer, or when to refer and when not to refer, actually begins from the moment the patient steps into your clinic. Again, it begins from the moment the patient steps into your clinic. So my recommendation would be to pay very close attention to some of the strategies that you're going to be learning here tonight, and implement as many as you can, because at the end of the day, the referrals that you get are going to be completely dependent on the very first impression that the patient gets when they come into your clinic. Let me present a normal scenario when a patient comes into your clinic. Okay. Again, I'm talking about this in terms of the patient coming into your clinic, but this also applies to patients who simply call and interact with your front desk. So let's say a patient calls your front desk and says, "Do you accept my insurance?" And the front desk immediately answers the question and says, "Okay, what type of insurance do you have? Okay, what's your insurance card? What's your insurance number rather?" And gives the patient that information. That's a bit of a problem because that's where you allow the patient to control the conversation. If you want to start getting more referrals from patients, you've got to be able to control the conversation. Now, what does that mean? Control the conversation. That doesn't mean you don't give patients answers to their questions. Obviously, if a patient asks a question, we have to give them the answer. But you have to do it in a way that allows you to control the conversation, that allows you to actually convey the benefits of what you have to offer, so that the patient can understand that your practice is different. Your practice, in other words, you guys are experts, you guys are professional, you guys are not just another clinic down the street. For example, let's say you get a call and the front desk says, "Okay, yes, we accepted the insurance. What's your insurance ID? Let me run an eligibility verification, or let me check and let you know." I mean, some practices don't even go to that extent. Let's assume you are helpful and you do. You know what? That's actually not ideal, and here's why. When a patient calls and says, "You accept my insurance," the best response should be, "We have, before we look into that, let me find out, what are you calling about? How, what's her, what's causing you discomfort, that you're calling us and reaching out to us? How, what's going on? Tell me a little bit about what's going on." Now, when the patient starts talking about themselves and what's bothering them, and by the way, and I know that patients love talking about the ailments. They need someone to talk to. That's so we become not only the physical therapist, but in some ways they're sort of mental counselors as well. Although that's certainly not our intention, it just tends to happen. The front desk has to show that level of empathy. The front desk has to show that level of understanding from the moment the patient calls. So when a patient calls, the patient has to get that initial feel good factor immediately from the front desk, because that's really where the rubber meets the road, because that's where patients form an opinion almost instantly of your practice, whether you like it or not. Think of it, think of the first time let's say you met someone on a date, for example. The very first impression is crucial. You've got to see something that you like to, in this case, as far as the patient therapist relationship is concerned, not only keep coming back to the clinic, but also get into what I call the referral generation mindset. The referral generation mindset, it starts at the front desk, and the front desk can do two things. Number one, the front desk can condition patients to refer by reminding them that referrals are expected. They are not a bonus. They are not something where you go, "Oh, wow, you've referred? That's awesome. I mean, I wasn't expecting it." No, the referral has to, uh, you know, if you want to call it a rite of passage for the patients. Patients have to be conditioned to refer. Now, how do you condition patients to refer? I'll give you some scripts by the end of this training, so that you'll have that. But again, there are two things that the front desk should do. Number one, condition patients for referrals, so that patients are expected to give a referral. Not, it's not a bonus, it's expected. Number two, and this is the big one, the front desk has to demonstrate social proof for referrals. In fact, this is something that everyone listening may want to write down. The front desk has to demonstrate social proof for referrals. What does that actually mean, social proof? The front desk has to say, "Hey, Joanna, thanks so much for coming in. By the way, did you know that our patient of the month actually referred 6 patients to us? We'd appreciate it if you can refer at least 1 or 2 patients to us, because we depend on word of mouth referrals from valued patients like you." You see what I did there? You kind of just, and I know this sounds harsh, or strong, but you kind of inadvertently pressured the patient. And you didn't do it explicitly, you didn't do it outright, and you certainly don't mean to quote unquote pressure the patient, but the the subtle notion that the patient now sort of understands and comes to a conclusion about is that, hey, other people are referring, so I should do that as well. So again, referral generation starts at the front desk, and the front desk can do two things. Number one, condition patients to refer, and I'm going to give you that script in just a moment. And you may have heard that script before, but within the context of the front desk, it's even more important because, again, the therapist can use the script as well, but it's the front desk that sets the stage because a patient interacts with the front desk person before they see a therapist. When they see a therapist, they're not really expecting to be asked for referrals because that's in their mind, that's not what therapists do. The funny thing is, a lot of therapists in their mind also feel shy about asking for referrals, but that's a whole other subject. We're going to keep our focus on the front desk now. So the front desk essentially has a lot more freedom, a lot more leeway to actually condition patients for referrals than the therapists do, which is interesting if you think about it, because how many times have you had patients who interact more with the front desk than they do with the therapist? Because there's this sense of respect. There's this sort of a professional, I don't want to use the word barrier, but a professional relationship with the physician where you don't expect, with the clinician, with the physical therapist, where the patient doesn't really expect the physical therapist to ask for referrals, and the physical therapist does. That's great. But with the front desk, there's often a relationship where you get to know them as a patient. The front desk is usually tries to help accommodate the patient as far as scheduling is concerned, is usually the point of contact for the patient as far as authorizations are concerned, eligibility verification is concerned. So why not use the opportunity at the front desk, at that at that very sort of apex of interaction with the patient, to say, hey, and this is the script, by the way. Hi, Joanna. Thanks so much for coming in. By the way, do you know of anyone who might benefit from our services? We depend on word of mouth referrals from valued patients like you. The best way you can thank us is by referring a family or friend. We do not spend money on advertising like some of the larger clinics. Instead, we focus all of our attention on the patient. Can you write down the names of a couple of friends who might benefit from our services? Here's a pen and paper. You can actually give people a sort of like a memory reminder sheet where patients essentially, sort of say, okay, my uncle, my aunt, my sibling, my parents, my spouse, my children, do any of these people, or can any of these people benefit from the services of the clinician? So that's a way to condition patients. Now, the interesting thing about conditioning patients is that we do not tend, as a normal tendency, we do not do it on an ongoing basis. We tend to do it once or twice, and then we get a little bit intimidated when we start asking patients for referrals. In other words, you do it once or twice, but then you give up. Now, how many of you listening, and please confirm this in our chat window, how many of you listening have had a situation where you initiate the referral generation request, where you ask the patient for referrals, but then you kind of just you back off after a little bit? There's no real reason. Maybe sometimes you have a bad experience where the patient simply says, I don't want to refer, or sometimes the patient does refer, but you just stop doing it. So if you've had an experience where you ask a patient for referrals and then you just stop, then please go ahead and type in yes or something along the lines of sometimes let's get some feedback going, because I want to try and make this make this an interactive experience for the live attendees. Obviously, the ones who are listening to the recording, you'll still benefit from the content, minus the the chat window. But again, if you've had an experience where you are where you have your front desk staff that's actually done some marketing but then just suddenly stopped, again, there's no apparent reason. It could be that there was something didn't work, The front desk felt a little intimidated, or for that matter, something actually worked, but you still stopped doing it anyway. Again, have you had an experience where there was some referral generation effort at the front desk and, you know, doesn't matter whether it worked or it didn't work, but you kind of just stopped? Again, if you've had that experience, please go ahead and type in yes, been there, done that, or add your notes, or add your comments in the chat window, because the point I'm trying to get at is that conditioning only happens with repetition. Again, let me repeat that. The point I'm trying to get at is that conditioning only happens with repetition. What happens when you keep repeating the request with the patient? Again, when you keep repeating the request with the patient, that's the only time that you can actually get through to patients, because patients are extremely busy. And thanks for confirming that, Robert. Patients are extremely busy. Now, you see, as much as we need to condition patients for referrals, the truth is we actually need to condition our staff members. As much as we need to convince our patients to refer, we actually need to condition our staff members to be consistent with the efforts. And I know this sounds a little bit strange, coming, when we're talking about a webinar where you're conditioning patients to refer, but guess what? Everything I'm about to teach you in this training, if you do it for a week or two, you'll get some results. If you do it for a month, you'll get a lot more results. But if you do it 12 months out of the year, consistently using the formula, the frequency I'm about to give you, your results will become exponential. That's how you create a culture of referrals. You don't create a culture of referrals by doing something once. And by the way, that's not the definition of culture. The definition of a culture is something that becomes a part of the fabric of your day-to-day operations. It becomes a part of the very nature of your interactions with the consumers you serve. It becomes something you live by, something that becomes your credo, almost something that you believe in, something that you're not uncomfortable about, even if it's unconventional. And there can be a lot of, we can go in several different directions with this concept alone. But what you need to do is you need to tell your front desk staff, okay, listen, patients need to be conditioned for referrals. To condition patients for referrals, we need a very specific script. And we need to be able to constantly remind patients to refer. What does that mean, constantly remind patients to refer? It means that when a patient is discharged, you remind them for referrals. There's a lot more. See, I was just trying to see if I could, have everyone paying attention here. It's not just discharge. The patient has to be conditioned for referrals from the initial evaluation, after every daily note, after every single visit, after every progress note, after every reevaluation, and at the time of discharge. When you're conditioning patients for referrals, and as a small, you see, this is not something that corporations do. This is not something that institutions do because it's, frowned upon. But as small private practice owners, we need the edge. We need to take advantage of certain psychological principles of, conditioning. And, I talked about social proof as well. I'll come back to that. When you condition someone through repetition, the likelihood of the desired outcome significantly increases. Now, I don't know how many of you are parents here. I just became a parent, and I'm finding out myself that, when you repeat something over and over again, and when you do it in our case, in a fairly professional manner, and, with parenting, you kind of, you have to be firm at times, as everyone knows. Sometimes, you got to be more than firm. But you may have to be extremely firm. But within the context of a professional front desk relationship, you've got to professionally, politely remind patients consistently to refer using the script that I have provided you. So coming to the second point, which is social proof, that goes hand in hand with positive reinforcement. Your patients are not going to refer, and neither is your front desk going to be motivated to ask them to refer if they are the first ones. Now, look, Rome wasn't built in a day, and everyone has to begin somewhere. So, you probably, if you're just starting off doing this, then, try and get a couple patients to refer, Maybe the therapist can step in, maybe the clinic managers can get involved. But chances are you've had patients who refer. So all you have to do is, get your front desk to say, hey, this patient referred 2 patients in the last month. We'd love to see you, refer as well. And you can take that concept to the next level, by the way, by having a patient appreciation month. It's something we've talked about in the previous training, which is the 12-month calendar. But again, having the patient appreciation month is a way to provide positive reinforcement for your patients. In other words, you're not only telling your patient, hey, I need you to refer, you're telling your patient that, look, other people refer as well. And, as far as referrals are concerned, when you refer to us, we appreciate you, we, recognize you, we praise you, we put you on a pedestal, we feature you in our newsletter, and we invite you to our patient appreciation month, where you get to talk about your progress if you feel comfortable with it. So all of these little things matter, because when it comes to referral conditioning, again, coming back to 2 things before I move on to the next slide. Number 1, the patient must be conditioned to refer. Number 2, there must be some degree of social proof. In other words, there have to be other patients who've referred, and the patient has to be reminded about that, so that they feel, you know what, others are referring, and so should I. So, those are the little things that are really important and that matter from a referral standpoint. So that's how referral generation starts at the front desk: conditioning and social proof. Again, conditioning and social proof as far as referrals are concerned. So I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, feel free to type it out in the chat window. So number 1, attitude. We went over 2 broad concepts. Now we're going to dig into much deeper concepts. Every patient has a slightly different personality. Now, it's almost impossible to provide a lesson in personality in a 1-hour webinar training that's supposed to encompass the whole experience that the patient gets at the front desk. But let's give it a shot. Let's give it our best shot. Your front desk person needs to be a cheerleader. Again, your front desk person needs to be a cheerleader. Just on a side note, Robert, yes, I did see your message. We will actually be emailing everyone the handouts, because I'm in the process of making some updates to the handouts. So you will get the handouts by email. If I can, I'll provide you the handout at the end of this training session, because we were making some updates to the handouts and I was adding them and they weren't quite complete. But again, I can provide them to you by the end of this training session, and they will also be emailed to you. So hopefully that answers your question. Attitude. Your front desk has to be a cheerleader for your practice. Your front desk has to have an abundance of enthusiasm, even be animated at times. In other words, your patient has to be an enlarged, I don't want to use the word enlarged, but a more animated, a more vocal representation of your clinic than you think it needs to be. Now think of cheerleaders. Now they're flamboyant. They're it's nice to watch them in action, and it's a skill that people naturally gravitate to, right? So as a front desk person, your front desk person, when someone calls your front desk, and I'm going to give you just a mock call here, because we do this all the time for our clients. If your front desk says, "Hi, ABC Physical Therapy, how can I help you? Hey, I'd like to come in. Do you take my insurance? What kind of insurance do you have?" "Well, I have Aetna, and I don't know what my insurance ID is because I can't find my card." "Well, no problem. Just call us back when you have it." Okay. You see, so now as a patient, I'm getting the impression that the front desk isn't really keen on talking to them. Isn't really is busy, wants to get off the phone. Patients understand that everybody's busy. But how about this for a second? "Hi, is that ABC Physical Therapy?" "Yeah, it is. How can I help you? What can I do for you?" I want to come in, but I have Aetna insurance. You take insurance?" "Well, yeah, I'm sure we take your insurance, but before I can verify that, tell me a little bit about why you're calling today. What can we do to help you? What's bothering you? Are you in pain? How can we help?" "Well, I've had this knee pain and it's bothering me, and I can barely get out of the car." "Oh gosh, I know how that feels. This happened to me a few months ago, and having pain in your knee, gosh, I mean, it affects you in everything that you do, especially if you have to climb stairs. I'm so sorry to hear that. You know what? Let's get you in as quickly as possible so that we can have one of our therapists see you. Yeah, but do you take my insurance? Well, you know what? Look, um, we can find out more about eligibility verification when you come in. Why don't you come in for a no obligation consultation? And if we do accept your insurance, we'll let you know before we provide you any services. And if we don't, we'll provide you with other options that are affordable and economical. They might even be lower than your copay. But it all depends, and we can look into that for you. Do you want to go ahead and schedule an appointment? I have Thursday open at 4 o'clock. Yeah, sure, why not? Thursday at 4 sounds good. So you see what happened there. What happened there was the attitude of the front desk is sort of, it's essentially make or break, because sometimes the attitude can go a long way in establishing the difference between a patient that's going to come to your clinic versus a patient that's going to go elsewhere. So again, these little things matter. The small perceptions that the patient has of your attitude. And by the way, attitude is not just verbal communication, it's non-verbal communication. When the patient steps in, is the front desk, talking to them, attending to their needs, being responsive, being helpful, trying to go above and beyond. And I'm going to come to that in just a second, because that's what patients need. Patients want to feel well taken care of, and why shouldn't they? Patients want to feel that they're being heard. Patients don't just want treatment. Patients want to be treated like human beings. Patients want to be treated with dignity, with respect, with appreciation, with recognition. In fact, guess what? Patients want to almost feel famous when they come to your clinic. If your front desk has the skill and the genuine interest in the patient's lives to make patients feel valued, feel unique, not feel like just another patient, but feel valued, feel unique, feel looked after, feel special, that's when the patient will readily refer you to their friends and family. In fact, in a situation like this, a patient is just waiting to be conditioned to refer. And when you take the conditioning and add the social proof component on top of it and say, you know what, these are the other patients who referred, it's like you're sort of taking you're sort of igniting something in your practice. It's kind of like you're lighting a matchstick in an environment that that sets up exactly what you want, which is a whole bunch of referrals. So again, attitude is everything. And hopefully you can sit down, talk to your front desk staff, and try and get them up to an animated version of what they need to be. Remember this, if you are at 150% energy in terms of your attitude, your patients are going to absorb 100%. In other words, they're going to be at 100%, because there is a wastage of energy. There's sort of like an energy transfer when you talk to someone, when you meet them face to face, or when you talk to them over the phone. Now, this particular training, I'm excited doing this because first of all, I love delivering content, as you can see. Number two, this is something I passionately believe in. I want to be able to serve and help private practice owners. Number three, I'm coming at this at 100%. I have a professional grade microphone that I'm using. I have a headset on so that I'm not distracted by external sounds. I'm almost like a radio, like a radio RJ, almost like a professional DJ talking, because I'm 100% focused here. I'm not sitting back. I'm not walking around with my phone, and I'm not saying, okay, this is what we do next. It's good to have a nice attitude. So I'm trying to sort of bring 150% of my energy to the table, because I know that everyone listening, all the attendees, everyone listening in this audio recording, you're going to be busy. You're probably, doing this among other things. You're probably, distracted with something else. You have a whole bunch of paperwork you need to get back to. We're busy professional people. Now put yourself in the patient's shoes. The patient's in pain. They're coming to you. You're probably giving them a home exercise program. They're probably expecting some sort of a bill in the mail from your practice. The patient's at the same time getting a phone call from a spouse that says, hey, don't forget to get milk and eggs. The patient's probably got some, work backlog. The patient's probably working extra hours. they have credit card bills that are probably maxed out. The patient has a lot going on. Okay, so when a patient comes to your clinic, it can't just be for treatment, because that's what they expect. And this is what you'll learn in the next few minutes: giving patients what they don't expect. Now, I know this sounds simple, but I'll give you an actual example of the unexpected. Giving patients examples of what they don't expect is what takes your practice to the next level, is what demonstrates a powerful attitude that becomes game changing for your practice. Because it's easy to be like everyone else. It's easy to deliver exactly what people expect. But in this economy, in this environment that we live in this hyper competitive environment, your front desk, oh my God, your patient has to call your clinic and say, I have to go there. I just have to go there. So that is the attitude that you want. Now, moving on to the unexpected. One of my favorite books is a book called Influence by, I believe he's a psychologist. Don't quote me on that, but he's certainly some sort of a lecturer or a speaker on human psychology. His name is Robert Cialdini. And in his books, he talks about it in the book Influence. He talks about an experiment where patients, where clients, when they went to a restaurant, I believe this was in New York City, they did a study, and they found that when the server comes back to leave the check, and if the server gives a mint to the patron, then their tip went up. But if the server comes back and gives 2 mints and looks at the patron and says, this is for you good people, the gratuity went through the roof. Now, doing something unexpected for a patient can be something as simple, okay, as simple as giving them an exercise band that they can take home, saying, you know what, this is for you, no worries. You can even go above and beyond. And I've seen this happen in a grocery store. I've actually done it myself for someone I was trying to help in my clinic. And the effect, again, I've used this word before, and I like using it because some of these strategies are indeed game changing. I was in a my wife and I, we were a big fan of not just organic food but specialty food. So we were at Whole Foods, and there was a sign in Whole Foods that said, when you're done shopping, just let us know and we'll actually carry your bags to your car for you. Why? Because it's what we do and we like helping you. That's it. I said to myself, gosh, if I go to a regular grocery store, or if you go to a place like a Walmart or any other place, are they going to carry something for you? Heck no. They're probably busy, understandably so. Heck, you might not even have someone to help you find what it is that you're looking for. Not always, anyway. But in Whole Foods, I looked at that and I go, first of all, I didn't take them up on it because, I probably could have and should have, and I'm sure some people do. I didn't take them up on it. But the very fact that it was offered to me, you know what that was? The word on your screen right now. It was unexpected. When you do something that's unexpected, and I'm going to go to the next slide because this is another important word. When you do something that's unexpected and personalized, now I'm starting to expand on the concept and go into more advanced territory. When you do something that's unexpected and personalized, you are now creating an everlasting experience for the patient. You see, a VIP patient experience isn't just about, oh, let's just give the patient appointments as quickly as possible. Let's just treat them, do an outstanding job. Let's just sort of send them a letter. No. It's about doing something that's unexpected and personalized to the patient. What's meaningful for the patient? Let's say the patient has low back pain. You know what's unexpected and personalized? A DVD on low back pain prevention that you can purchase from Amazon. Give it to the patient as a gift. Heck, it could a DVD that you've created. Not that hard to create your own DVDs. I wouldn't do a USB drive, even though a USB drive is a new standard, because it's so small. It doesn't have a high perceived value. Giving patients something that is unexpected and personalized and has a high perceived value allows your practice to sort of create that everlasting experience that then leads to referrals. Now, here's how the front desk can do this. Identify some sort of an either an educational tool or some sort of device that could be inexpensive, hopefully under $10 for your practice, that you don't mind gifting to the patient at discharge. So you gift the patient something that's unexpected, personalized, and that has a high perceived value. You see, a book, a DVD has high perceived value. It could honestly, it could even be something as simple as a picture of the therapist and the patient in a photo frame. Something that's inexpensive for you. You don't have to give the patient anything more expensive like dinner or something like that. I mean, nothing like that, but just something that's educational, that's unexpected, that's personalized, that creates the everlasting patient experience. I hope that makes sense. So now let's move on to the next point, which is contact information collection. Your front desk should be able to collect all possible data points from your patient. So in other words, when the patient comes in, the objective of the front desk is to again collect all possible data points. What do I mean by that? What I mean is the front desk should collect the patient's first name, last name, check. Patient's address, check. Patient's email, not always. Patient's cell phone number, not always. Patient's home phone number, usually check. And if the patient has one, maybe even the patient's some sort of an instant messaging ID, whether it's a FaceTime ID or a Skype ID, or these days the people use a device called WhatsApp, especially if they have smartphones. Get the patient's information in multiple ways so that you have the ability to reach the patient in multiple different ways. You're not just depending on either email or cell phones as a form of communication. You are now able to reach the patient in multiple ways. Having a complete contact profile, collecting contact information, having a complete contact profile where you have at least 3 different ways of contacting the patient: regular mail, email, and cell phones. 3 different ways of contacting the patient, because guess what? Your patients may not respond to, may not receive, or may not prefer the communication medium you choose by default. Just because you send emails to everyone doesn't mean that everyone opens them. However, if you send emails and if you send something in the mail, the chances of people noticing and the response, you getting a response go up. And if you were to call patients on their cell phone, assuming you do have permission to call patients on their cell phone about appointment related activity and other information that your clinic puts out, which by the way should be an educational newsletter. But if you reach patients in 3 different ways, the same patient, chances are they'll miss the first message, they might look at the second message, but they'll hear the third message, and now it's like 1, 2, 3. They go, okay, yeah, you know what, before I forget, let me refer, or let me, whatever the desired outcome is for you, whether it's, refer someone, come in for a trial of a cash paying service, it could be anything. But the best way to achieve the objective is to collect complete contact information from the patient. So I hope that makes sense. So moving on, the patient exit script. When a patient is leaving your clinic, the patient should be given what's called as an exit script. Now, here's the exit script. How do you feel? Did you benefit from physical therapy? Most patients will say yes, obviously, because you've done a good job. Did you benefit from physical therapy? Oh, great. You know what? I have a question for you. Would you mind writing a review? In fact, don't even use the word review. Would you mind telling us a little bit about your experience so we can share it with other patients? Excellent. Here's a computer. And, there's this website called Google, and, you can type out your experience. It's a Google review, and you can give us 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 stars. Now, notice what happened here. You're actually asking the patient for a testimonial, by the way. But I didn't use the word testimonial. In fact, I use the word review because I just don't like the word testimonial. But you don't even need to use the word review with your patients. You can simply say, tell us a little bit about your experience. The moment you say, tell us, give us a review, it's a little intimidating. It's daunting. Patients say, well, let me think about it. Because now they're thinking, gosh, I want to write something, but I don't know what to write. And I don't want to feel pressured to write it right away. You know what? Then just tell the patient, tell us a little bit about your experience, could you? Now, when the patient says yes, have the patient sit down and type in their experience in a Google review page. and then have them give you 1 to 5 stars. Hopefully they'll give you more. And then those, now let's use the word reviews. Those reviews are now available for anybody to see. And that's important because now that creates a cycle where if someone's seen a review, what are they more likely to do when they call the front desk? They are more likely to see you as an authority, more likely to see you as an expert. It's an amazing self-perpetuating cycle. So the patient exit script should be, again, how was your experience with physical therapy? Did you get better? Oh, excellent, Joanna. Hey, listen, before you go, can you tell us a little bit about your experience at our clinic? Just a little feedback so we know how we can improve. Oh, great. You know what? Sit down. Here's the Google review page. Just type in your experience, give us 1 to 5 stars, and hit submit. That's it. Now, when you do that, you are creating the foundation. Again, you're creating the foundation for ongoing patient referrals. Very valuable. The patient exit script. So I hope that makes sense. So everybody, in a nutshell, those were the key points. Referral generation starts at the front desk. By the way, if anyone has any questions, please go ahead and type it out into the chat window on the right side. If you're watching a recording, you can send an email to customer support and I'll do my best to answer your questions. But again, referral generation starts at the front desk. Your front desk should condition patients to refer and should demonstrate social proof so that patients are inadvertently, reminded, conditioned to refer because others have done it. The primary conditioning happens through repetitions, and the secondary conditioning happens through the impact of social proof. So I hope that makes sense. The attitude of the front desk has to be that, you're sort of a cheerleader almost, an exaggerated version of yourself. Now, obviously, you've got to find front desk who are comfortable doing this. You can't have somebody who, just is very shy, doesn't feel very confident, and, you expect them to be a cheerleader. Well, guess what? It's not going to happen. So what you can do is get someone else. You can try training this person, but my suggestion is to find someone who has those characteristics. Just, it's part of their own personal culture. It's part of their own DNA. So I hope you're starting to understand, what I mean by attitude. The third, unexpected and personalized. You've got to do things that the patient doesn't expect. Every patient expects to get appointments. Every patient expects to come in, to be seen on time, to see the therapist, and then to go home and feel a little better. But here's what patients don't expect. Before they come in, they get a welcome call from you. When patients come in, okay, then immediately they sort of, the front desk starts, to talk to them. When patients are getting treatment, that's, usually expected. You can't really do something unexpected there because we all follow, a clinical protocol, practice acts and state guidelines. But when a patient is being discharged, what they don't expect is to maybe get an exercise band or a DVD on low back pain or a book on low back pain and a request for referrals. You see, so that's the difference between the expected and the unexpected. Every little thing matters. We talked about personalized. The more you understand your patient, the more likely you are to not only serve the patient better, but give them a personalized gift that allows them to, to sort of make it their own. That's really important. The gift must be personalized. And by the way, you can get outstanding personalized gifts for under $10. You've got to collect full contact information from the patient. Full contact information includes name, email, cell phone, mailing address, and home phone. The last two are usually quite common, but the first three, well, then let's just say they're not common. So you need to collect complete contact information. Finally, the patient exit script, reminding patients that they should be referring by pointing out other staff members, but more importantly, basically during the exit script, you're letting the patient know what you want from them. You're letting the patient know that you want them to write, you want them to basically share their experience. You see, sharing experience is much more powerful and less pressured than saying, give us a testimonial or give us a review. So I hope that made sense. So overall, this concludes our training. I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has any questions. But again, overall, this completes our training on referral generation starts at the front desk. Again, this completes our training on referral generation starts at the front desk. If anyone has any questions, please go ahead and type it out into the chat box on the right side. I'll be taking a couple of questions. Again, if you have any questions, please go ahead and type it out in the chat box on the right side. If not, and if there are no more questions, then I will be wrapping up in a few minutes. So when a patient comes to your front desk or when a patient calls, the initial experience that they get is extremely, extremely powerful and forms not only an opinion for the remainder of the stay, but it helps form lifelong opinions for the staff members, which is pretty crucial if you really think about it. So again, if you have any questions, please go ahead and type it out into the chat box on the right side. I'll give it another 60 seconds. If you don't have any questions, then I can go ahead and wrap up this training. If you have any feedback, please go ahead and respond to Ian or just email me. That's nitin@referralignition.com. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Again, it looks like there are no questions, which is great. Let's give it another 60 seconds and see if anyone has any questions. Okay, sounds good. Looks like no one has any questions. I appreciate everybody for their time. As far as the handouts are concerned, give me just a second. And I do believe that I can probably get you the handouts right now. Give me just a moment, please. So what I can do then is I can get everybody the handouts right now. Just a second. Give me a moment, because I will be able to provide everybody with a link, like I said, so that you can get the handout. Give me a moment. Oh, I think I went off the screen. That's me right there. Let me go back to the screen share. Let me go back to my full screen mode. Give me just a moment. I'm going to go back to the screen share. One moment. And I will then go ahead and make sure that everyone has the handouts right this very moment. I'll be providing it now, and I'll also be sending it by email to everybody on our call. Okay, just a moment. Let me make sure that I get to the right screen, and I will then make sure that it gets over to everybody. One moment. Thank you so much for your patience. If anyone has any questions, again, last call for questions. If anyone has any questions, please go ahead and provide that information, ask that question on the screen. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to post a message that is now going to go out to everybody. I've now posted a link on the right side of the page on the right side of the page for people to download this training. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and enter those questions on the right side of your screen. This concludes the training. If anyone can give me some feedback as to how, what you thought of the training. By the way, this link I provided you on the right side, right click and choose Save As, and you'll then be able to to get the handouts. Again, right click and choose Save As. You can also left click and you'll get the PDF, and then you'll be able to download it. I'd like to get some feedback from the attendees. Robert, Veronica, you guys have been active on the chat. Mary, you as well. If you guys can give me some feedback, I'd really appreciate it, because that that allows me to get gear our feedback for future training. So again, if anyone has any questions, please go ahead and provide those questions. If not, I'll go ahead and wrap up the training. Thank you so much, everybody. I will go ahead and wrap up the training. Thank you so much. God bless, and I will talk to everybody on the next training. Appreciate it.